stable in the tray, but put the tray on. So you'll want to clean the tray first. And this is really important because you do not want to get mold on your cat. And that's another thing. When I hand you guys your cat, you will need to check to see if there's mold. We have found mold in some of the cats, in some of Kathleen's cats. What you're going to want to look for are white fuzzy things, mainly around the head, the hands, and the paws, the front and back paws. See any white fuzzy stuff? That's mold. You'll need to tell me immediately so that we can dispose of it and I can give you a new cat. Because if you don't, it'll contaminate the whole room, and you guys will lose all your cats, and then there goes the quarter. All right. So you guys will be reusing the cats that you used last quarter. So, after you clean the tray, what else do you clean? The tools. You will need scissors, tissue forceps, the one with teeth on it, a scalpel, right, and a blunt probe. Believe it or not, I've had this dissection kit since I was since I was a freshman. I used it once as a freshman and then waited 6 years to use it again. Clean your tools. I recommend that you start with a new blade. If you need help putting on the blade, let me know. I don't want you guys to get cut, because then I'll get blamed. All right. That's settled. All right. Yeah, put everything on first.
Is it fine if we record you?
Yes, that is fine. As long as we're not looking at any human body parts, it's fine. Okay, so when you guys get your cats, they'll look something like this. They won't be cut open, right? Obviously. The first thing you will do, you will make an incision, the base of the abdomen. So, right about here, I recommend you use scissors. Make a snip, and then with the pointy part down, you'll want to cut upwards. Cut snip, 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 snip up. And as you're cutting, go with your finger, because you'll want to go. You'll want to feel for this muscle. That's the diaphragm. Once you feel the diaphragm, you will then cut along the sides, like that, and then you will open it up as so. Right? You do not want to cut the diaphragm because you'll want to keep this as a barrier between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. Right? Depending on the cat you get, it will be nice and neat like this, or it may have a lot of fat and you'll have to do a lot of cleaning. It just depends the cat you get. When you do, after you're done with the abdominal cavity, you will then open up the thoracic cavity. This one's a little bit of a pain. For the abdominal cavity, leave a space, and then with your scissors, you're going to want to cut and snip the sternum, and then cut downwards on one side, and on the other side it'll be a little bit difficult. And then you might have some muscle here, so using your scalpel, you want to cut the muscle alongside the sternum. Not in the middle of the sternum, but alongside the sternum. Cut, separate with your fingers, and then snip the ribs. Snap, 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 snap. And then it'll go like this, and then you'll need to break all the ribs. You break them at the base. I recommend, grab your scissors, find the rib, snap, 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 snap. Okay? And your cat won't look like this. You'll need to do some cleaning. You'll see a lot of this red stuff coming out. That's just blood. Got blood and stuff. Don't worry about it. It's not anything bad. Right? You'll need to cut past the clavicles, and you need to clean the throat area. In the neck region, so that you can see this structure, which is known as the trachea. Okay? So, let's go over some of the structures. Let me see here. We'll go with the thoracic cavity. we'll go from here. I'm gonna work my way down, okay? Starting here in the KW sheet, it's talking about teeth, right? Someone? Your lab manual talks about different types of teeth that are done. Okay, so you have the oral cavity, your nasal cavity is over here, right? This is not my cat. If it was my cat, I would have had you snap the jaw here, break the jaw in half, and remove the tongue, which we'll be doing that later on. I just would have had you done it now instead of later, so that you guys could have seen the pharynx and the larynx, but whatever. So let's look at the teeth, right? So you notice that the cat has different types of teeth, as do we. So that's known as being heterodonts. Hetero, different, dont, teeth, right? Cats have incisors, canines, carnassials. We have incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. Each one does a different function, but with overlapping function as well with the other ones, right? Teeth are there for primary mechanical digestion. In other words, we begin to break food in our mouth, right, mechanically, but we also produce saliva, and the saliva is produced via salivary glands. And we have 3 locations. We have one on the side, known as the parotid salivary glands. We have one underneath the tongue, known as the sublingual salivary glands, and we have one close to underneath the jaw, known as the submandibular salivary glands. What can you tell me the function would be of these glands? Obviously to produce saliva, but what for?
Break down food.
So we begin chemical digestion in the mouth. So we can so initial chemical digestion happens in the mouth, and we also produce saliva to lubricate the food so that it can go down the trachea. Sorry, down the esophagus, not the trachea, right? So it goes down here, and so what you see here, you guys notice this tube right here? If you can't see, you're welcome to stand on the tables as long as you can see, right? That tube you see right there, that is the trachea. One thing you should be able to notice is that it has these bumps, these grooves, ridges, right? And you can feel these ridges. Actually, you can feel it too if you rub your neck on the bottom right here. You can feel these ridges, right? These are known as cartilaginous rings. That's kind of a misnomer. They're not really rings. They're more C-shaped. So what can you tell me would be their function? What can you tell me will be the function of these cartilaginous rings?
To bring air in the body.
Not to bring air in the body, not flexibility.
It's open and close.
You're to keep it open.
Okay.
So, would it be a bad thing for your trachea to collapse?
Yes.
Yes, right? The cartilaginous rings are there to provide structural support for the trachea. It needs to be open at all times. And that's what we see here. Now, you can barely see it on the cat, but you will be able to see it when we rip the tongue out at some point. But this structure here and the one over here, this is known as the thyroid cartilage. That's this big thing we see here. This is the thyroid cartilage. Your Adam's apple really is this part of the thyroid cartilage, right? Beneath the thyroid cartilage is a true ring of cartilage, and that's known as the cricoid cartilage. You can kind of see that over here a little bit of the cricoid cartilage, and you got the thyroid cartilage. The cricoid cartilage is the only true tracheal ring, while the other false rings are C-shaped. So, do you see how it's not full circle? Right? Okay. Now, underneath the trachea, we'll see this structure. There's a muscular tube, right? This muscular tube, what do you think is the identity of that?
Esophagus.
This is the esophagus. Excellent. And the esophagus will lead down through the thoracic cavity into the abdominal cavity, right? So we got the trachea and esophagus. Another thing I'll just show right now, since it's right here, is this vessel. This is a very important vessel. That is the right common carotid artery. It's an artery that will take blood to the brain and to the outside of the face, right? Because it'll split into the internal and the external carotid arteries, right? And you also have a white string thing next to it, and this little dental floss looking structure is a very important nerve. That is the vagus nerve. Which is cranial nerve number?
10.
Excellent. Number 10. And this nerve, you'll learn, terminates in the midgut, way over here. Pretty long nerve. It's the longest cranial nerve. Right. Since it was dissected out, I figure I'll show you now. I won't show you the great vessels here because she didn't clean it, and it's not a cat. But if we come down this way, we now get to see these structures. This is a cat lung on one side, and here's the other cat lung. On the other side, they have different numbers of lobes. We also have different numbers of lobes in our lungs as well. And in between them, you get to see this thing. That's the cat heart, right? The interesting is that you can also get to see that the heart is in fact inside a sac. This sac is known as the pericardium. And the pericardial sac is composed of the fibrous pericardium and the serous pericardium. Fibrous is the one you really can feel and see outside, and the serous is the one that really touches the heart itself, right? So if we were to cut this sac, which we will next week, you'll get to reveal the heart that's inside. Now, this is important. The space between the lungs, the space between here, here, and here is known as the mediastinum, right? Which means that in between the mediastinum, you will find the heart and the great vessels coming out of the heart, which should be, or the outflow tract of the heart, right? Superior vena cava, the brachiocephalic trunk, the aorta, which they're all over here, and we'll clean that another time. Coming down this way, you now get to see this muscle. This is the diaphragm muscle. Very simple, right? Can you see? Okay. Diaphragm, right? Now, do you see this shiny layer of tissue right here? What do you think that is? Did I erase it?
Is it the parietal peritoneum?
You're very close. It's the parietal pleura. Here, this shiny layer is the parietal peritoneum. But we're in the thoracic region, which means that because of the lungs, we now call it parietal pleura. The shiny layer on the viscera will now be called visceral pleura, while the shiny layer on the viscera in the abdominal cavity is known as visceral peritoneum. You guys follow me on that? Excellent. Let's keep going down. Going down into the abdominal region, we see this big organ. This is a cat liver. And then there is a pocket. Oh, not on my notebook. Oh, whatever, it's fine. This sac you see here, the sac I'm poking, sometimes it's green, sometimes it's kind of the same color as the liver. But this is the gallbladder of a cat. Okay? Liver, gallbladder. If the liver has lobes, if you open up the lobes, you can see the gallbladder a little bit better. Right? Move it along this way. If you follow the esophagus, we next get to see this stuff. This organ you see here is big organ. That's a cat's stomach. We follow the cat's stomach, actually sticking on the cat's stomach, off the greater curvature of the cat's stomach, you guys will notice this thing. This is going to drape over the intestines, really. This is called the greater omentum. The greater omentum is derived from dorsal mesentery. Okay, which is why I had you guys do that. Right, this comes from dorsal mesentery. Right. We also have the lesser omentum, which is found on the lesser curvature of the stomach. Right. Now, the greater omentum, inside of it you have the omental bursa, which is the sac, and this is where fat can be stored. Men tend to store fat in the greater omentum more than women do, because women will need this space for the developing fetus, so you tend to store fat mainly subcutaneously, right? So that beer belly that guys have, that's really the stuff. That's not muscle. Just so you guys know. What we see here, this tongue-like structure, that's a cat spleen. It looks very different from a human spleen. Human spleen kind of looks like a human kidney, smaller than a human kidney. This is a cat spleen. If we follow the stomach, the next tube, the tube that exits the stomach, which is this thing, you see this tube? This is the duodenum, or the duodenum. However you want to pronounce it, as long as you can spell it. Right? This is the duodenum. If you just pick the middle of the small intestines, you get the jejunum. To find the last part of the small intestine, you need to find the large intestine. Once you find the large intestine, the little tube that goes into the large intestine is this one. This tube is the ileum of the small intestine. Well, this is the large intestine. Now remember, the reason why it's called large versus small versus large has nothing to do with the length. It has to do with the caliber of the intestine. You guys follow me on this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Small intestine. Now we see the large intestine. The large intestine can also be broken up into different regions. If you set it up like a rainbow, this would be the ascending colon, transverse colon, the descending colon, and then coming down over here, you can start to see that it's going to start to kind of go in the squiggly line, right? There'll be the sigmoid colon. Go all the way down here would be the rectum, and then obviously the anus, right? One thing I forgot to tell you on the ascending colon. So the ileum connects to the large intestine here, but then you have this little blind pouch, this little pouch. Right. That pouch is called the cecum. Hanging off of the cecum, you will find an organ known as the appendix. Cats don't have an appendix. We do, and we will be able to see it on the cadaver. Okay. Over here, if we flip the greater omentum over and kind of make some space here, do you see this cottage cheese looking structure here? See that cottage cheese looking thing?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Pancreas.
That's the pancreas. That's a cat pancreas. Right? Oh, it does look like cottage cheese. I tend to use food as things to remind me of in this class. I get hungry when I dissect. Anyway, this structure here, this is a cat kidney. Okay? It won't look like this initially because we freed it. It'll look like this, just stuck in there. And it's stuck retroperitoneal, meaning that it's behind the peritoneum, right? And it's primary retroperitoneum. In other words, it's developed behind the peritoneum. And he'll talk about that at some point. Oh, he did already? Oh, okay. Oh, I know. In the kidney, we also have this tube. And this tube, which is this thing here, leads to the bladder. And that tube is called the ureter. The ureter goes to the bladder, and then we can see this thing. This is the urethra. Cat urethra right here, and then that goes out, right? Now, we need to talk about the genitals. So when you open up the abdominal cavity, you can confirm whether or not your cat is actually male. Because if you think you got a female cat, if you don't see the testicles, maybe a male cat, you just, the cat just was neutered. So one way to tell would be to look for the vas deferens, or look for ovaries. What we see here, in fact, this is a uterine tube. In other words, this is a female cat. This is the uterine horn, because the uterus is in here. You got a uterine horn here, a uterine horn here. Go up to the top here. You have the ovary and the fallopian tube. Okay. Now that was the big overview of the main organs that we can see at this time, right? Has he got no more foregut, midgut, and hindgut? All right. So I will write down the mnemonic that they taught me when I took this class as when I took it several years ago, the upper div anatomy. The foregut includes the esophagus, the stomach, the duodenum, the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Okay. The midgut includes jejunum. Here we go. Jejunum. The ileum. Find the ileum. Just find the large intestines. So ileum. Ascending colon. Transverse colon. And then the hindgut constitutes the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, the rectum, and the anus. I should note that some part of the duodenum is also found in the midgut. Okay. Right? And that's the overview. So, work in groups of 4, right? There's, I think it's like 15 of you guys, but try to work in groups of no more than 4. Send a representative from your group, and I'll give you your cat. And what you will do is before you open the bag, check for mold, and then you're gonna rip off the previous tag on that cat, and you will put your cat's name, today's period, which is Thursday 6 to 9, and then my name. That way you know that it's from my lab. All right, and have at it.